Hey traders, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about Vinco Ventures, ticker symbol BBIG. Super eventful day here. A lot going on, a lot to discuss. The morning started off with a big bear trap and then squeeze to 52-week highs. After that, we saw it kind of cool down a bit, and then that 8K dropped, and there was a lot of confusion, panic selling about that. We saw towards the end of the day, Vinco Ventures made a nice recovery. But in this video, I'm going to go over that 8K a little more in detail, explain what that means, why it's not necessarily the worst thing for this stock. And then I'm going to go into the charts, breaking down key levels, key indicators, so we know how to best play it moving forward before finally getting into gamma squeeze and short squeeze potential, breaking down those numbers for you guys. So stay tuned for that. For now, leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get started. Okay, so first and foremost, let's get into this 8K filing. It caused quite a bit of panic and confusion among investors. Hopefully, you guys were able to take advantage of some of the dips that came out because of this 8K filing. But let's read through it and see what it means for Vinco Ventures moving forward. So here it is on September 1st, 2021, aka today. Vinco Ventures entered into a warrant exercise agreement with an accredited investor, whereby the parties agreed that, subject to satisfaction of conditions, blah, 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 the investor shall exercise the warrants that were issued on May 24th, 2021, and currently held by the investor for almost 7 million shares of the company's common stock. And then also on top of that, the company is going to issue and deliver to the investor warrants to purchase an aggregate of 20 million shares of common stock at an exercise price of $9 per share, and then also an aggregate 2 million shares on top of that. So right now, what we're seeing is that there is going to be an investor purchasing 7 million shares of the stock, exercising their warrants from a few months ago. That is going to cause a little bit of dilution, but we're going to get more into that in a second. But the main thing here is that there's going to be an additional warrant issued for 20 million shares that isn't going to be exercisable right away. It's going to take a few months for that to be exercised. However, eventually there will be more dilution as a result of this announcement. That being said, the fact that there are investors right now that want to take on these warrants to buy 20 million shares at $9 per share a few months down the road just shows you kind of how bullish the institutions are on BBIG and their future right now. They're thinking that a few months down the road, it's going to be a steal to have the ability to purchase Vinco Venture stock for $9 per share. They're trying to load their boat. And meanwhile, retail investors seem to be panicking. So there's a little bit of disparity here. I ultimately believe that because of how high this $9 per share agreement price is, I believe that this is ultimately bullish news. It shows that Vinco Ventures and their investors expect to be above $9 per share and well above $9 per share in the coming months. So that's definitely a great thing. For me, it was an ease of mind and I was able to load up on some dips. So I was pretty happy with that announcement. And, as far as the 7 million shares that are going to be exercised soon, yes, that is unfortunate. Yes, that does decrease the value of your positions that you're holding. However, that being said, we've already done the math here. We've already kind of accounted for dilution when we calculated our price targets, and we accounted for a lot more dilution than 7 million shares. We actually did the math last Sunday during the video that kind of accounted for all 60 million shares through warrants that can be diluted in the near future. And we still saw that this stock, even at these current levels, up 300% since last week, it still might be an undervalued stock. So we're going to quickly just jump into that right now, just as a refresher. We saw that with dilution, worst case scenario, let's say that the proxy info is released and Vinco only receives 10% ownership of Lemotive. We calculated this 417 price, but best case scenario, when Vinco receives 40% of Lemotive, we calculated 1667. Now, keep in mind with these two prices, this is accounting for 60 million shares diluted. Today's dilution is only 7 million shares. So a lot less dilution today than what we were calculating, meaning that both of these prices and price targets should be a lot higher, even with today's dilution factored in. It should be a lot closer to the calculations we had without dilution, where worst case scenario was 833 and best case scenario was 33.33. It should only be small drop offs from these levels. You guys can do the maths from yourselves. I've laid out the formulas for you. I've laid out those numbers, and now, watch that video I made last Sunday if you need any help doing the calculations. But you should always have these tools to your disposal. It is a very, very simple formula that's going to kind of help gauge you as to kind of figuring out what your price target is and what your exit strategy is. But all that being said, ultimately 8K seems very, very bullish to me. Seems like quite an overreaction. I think the market towards the end of the day started to also realize that, and we saw a pretty nice push towards the end of the day. So let's hop into these charts and break them down fully. Okay, so here is the daily price action for BBIG on the 1 minute chart. As you guys can see, very, very eventful day here. First, we started off with this massive little gap down here, but the buyers were interested. They were not interested in kind of letting BBIG die out. A lot of people have done their DD here. They realize that fair value for this stock is a lot higher than these levels. And as a result, we started to see some good buying. And as soon as we broke that 834 marker, which was yesterday's high, I tweeted out, hey, this could be a bear trap. Watch out. And that's exactly what we saw here. Okay. We started to, we took a little dip, but then we started to move higher, higher, and higher. And then once we broke that $9 level and we got a lot of volume with that, shorts were absolutely stuck in the stock. And that caused massive volume to come in. We got a massive squeeze all the way to 1190 after the second unhold. Those are 52-week highs. And despite the fact that they're 52-week highs, the stock still was undervalued at those 1190 levels potentially. But after that, the stock had shot up about 40, almost 50% from that morning dip. So it was time to cool off. That's exactly what we saw. We let the chart kind of settle itself down, coil, start to build back up. And then, we were kind of trading in this range all day, kind of getting ready, consolidating, waiting for another push to maybe test those high of days. But unfortunately, as you guys can see right here, we got that 8K announcement and the market panicked. Big sell-off. Okay, we were sitting right here in the mid-9s all the way to the low 8s here. So ultimately, it was unfortunate. But from there, we had very, very nice dips. And if you were able to realize that the news didn't warrant such a big sell-off, you were hopefully able to hop in on some of these dips. And towards the end of the day, more and more people started to realize this. We had a massive push kind of in the last 15, 20 minutes of the day, almost started ourselves another short squeeze. Unfortunately, cooled down towards the end of the day. But that being said, we're sitting very pretty, still up 16% on the day, still up almost 300% in the last week, with a lot more room to potentially go. So that's what I have to say about the price action. Now, let's get into our key levels and indicators. There's really not that much to discuss with the indicators like I normally do. That being because we are so far above all of my moving averages that I use. And that ultimately means that currently BBIG stock is sitting in bullish territory in the very short term, in the short term, in the intermediate term, and in the long term. So that is very, very good. And then conversely, on the RSI, this is what happens when, you get a 300% move up in the matter of a few days. We are in very overextended territory. RSI currently sitting around that 85 level. So that is something to be cautious of. Buyers can't just buy like this forever. That being said, right now, there are so many other factors at hand that in the short term, we could see this stock continue to rip without consolidation. Ideally, if there weren't, all these catalysts and factors being involved, then maybe you would want some consolidation before seeing further movement. But this is obviously a special case. And as far as our key levels go, obviously a highly volatile stock. So, you kind of have to keep in all these support and resistance levels in mind and kind of scale accordingly if that's how you're playing it. But that being said, tomorrow, our key levels on the support side, we have 923, 874, and then 834 seems to be this big one right here. Okay, we got that big bounce off of it today. We got that big break of it earlier today, which kind of triggered that bear trap. So this is kind of a big level where buyers seem to load up. And then if it does break below, shorts seem to get pretty aggressive below there. So after that, there isn't much support till 750. But that being said, I do assume that if we go down to touch these levels, that there will be buyers stepping in. Like I always say with support levels, when it comes to either buying a position or adding to your position, I always urge you guys to target support levels to do your ads. By doing so, you end up minimizing your risk and maximizing your upside. But speaking of upside, let's get into our resistance levels tomorrow. So first one, big one right here at $10. That's obviously a big key psychological level for this stock. And, anytime you're going to transition from being a single digit stock to a double digit stock, that's going to get people's attention. There's always a natural resistance there. And it's obviously proven to be a pretty big resistance level over the course of today and over the course of the last few days. That being said, if we can get that break over 1050, 1085, those are also big levels. 1117 is kind of the historical level. It used to be where the all-time high sat before today's move. And now today's move is going to be our top resistance level right here at 1190. If we can get that push over 1190, I do expect another big squeeze. I do expect more volume to flow in, and there is no telling how high this stock can go. So watch out for that one. But yeah, those are your support and resistance levels. Now let's get into something I haven't really covered that much in these videos, specifically with the gamma squeeze potential here, because this is absolutely insane what we're seeing here. Right now, I'm just on E-Trade. I got their open interest for BBIG calls pulled up for you guys. And as you guys can see, absolutely monster interest right now, especially for out of the money calls or barely in the money calls, meaning that, the institutions and the hedge funds and the market makers that are issuing these calls are also kind of in trouble right now, just like the shorts are, because they know that if we do get this push to the upside, well, they're going to have to hedge their positions. And that's going to be what creates the gamma squeeze. Okay. Hedge funds right now, when they, sell you, or the institutions or, the brokerages that sell you these calls, ultimately, when they sell you the call, they open up a short position. And when these, vastly out of the money calls go into the money, all of a sudden they have to cover their position, and they cover their position by ultimately buying more shares. And that's what causes the squeeze up. That's what causes the gamma squeeze. So right now, massive open interest on these $10 calls for September 17th. Massive interest on these 11s. And then 15s. And look at right here. This is absolutely insane. We have a 20,000 open interest, 100,000 volume on the $20 calls. If the stock, were to somehow, have that big run up, have that big short squeeze potentially to get it above 20, well, all of a sudden, we would see these institutions and brokerages and market makers have to cover those positions. And that's ultimately going to send the stock even higher. So that's what we're working with here. Gamma squeeze potential, very much a thing here and very much plausible. And as we continue to go up, it's going to become more and more likely. So keep those in mind. And then finally, not as much to cover here. These were our short numbers updated yesterday. I'm interested to see how that changes today. Hopefully, we'll get an update on Twitter later today. Just kind of with that 8K filing, did shorts double down, or did they kind of leave once they all got squeezed out in the morning? But as of yesterday, 20% short interest on the float. We kind of saw that go into effect today with that short squeeze that we saw in the morning. So that's what we're working with here. 20%, definitely short squeeze potential. Really anything above 12 to 15%, I'm always eyeing for some sort of squeeze. But, when you get to 20% or 30%, that's where it becomes very squeezable. And as of yesterday, BBIG is sitting in that range. So keep your eye on that. Definitely give eHorse a follow. He's probably going to tweet out another update tonight. So make sure you're doing that. But all that being said, let me know what you think happens next for this stock. I'm always interested to hear your guys' feedback. If you have any questions for me, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. If you like this video, hit me with a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. And aside from that, have a great rest of your night.